Hey now, Adam.
Hey, what's up, Sitch? How are you doing?
I'm great, but you know who's not doing great?
This guy on screen? Is this Coach Red Pill?
This is Coach Red Pill. Can you believe it? Coach Red Pill, also known as Gonzalo Lira, is his real name.
Wow. Okay.
So, Coach Red Pill, if you guys don't recall, Coach Red Pill is a lolcow YouTuber who has a long sordid past, and we'll kind of get into a little bit of it. But the broad strokes just up front is that he was a guy who did like dating advice content, and then that kind of died down, and then he started picking fights with Sargon and doing like weird drama content and accusing Sargon of all sorts of things that were not true. And he ends up eventually moving to Ukraine. And then when he's in Ukraine, Russia invades Ukraine. And so what does Coach Red Pill do? He decides, I'm going to make content and get views by talking about how much Ukraine sucks and is evil and how base and awesome Russia is.
Okay.
And
There's a market for that. I can see that.
sure. But you can imagine that, the Ukrainian government is not quite so happy about a foreign citizen living in their country who's talking about how awesome it is that, tens of thousands of Ukrainian people are dying, being killed by Russia as Russia's invading their country.
I could see people being upset about that as well. I can see that perspective, right?
Right.
Your citizens are being killed and you got this foreign national on your soil basically talking a bunch of smack, emboldening the enemy and talking smack about your people fighting against these invaders. That doesn't look good. That doesn't feel right.
No, yeah. So they were not happy about that. And we'll kind of talk about like whether the morality of this later. But so in Ukraine, it's against the law actually to promote, quote propaganda or to promote like speech that's like super favorable of Russia and very anti-Ukraine. So they arrested Coach Red Pill for doing this. They ended up making some kind of agreement where he would have to remain under house arrest, and he violated that by trying to flee the country and run away to Hungary, interesting enough, with Viktor Orban. And then they caught him before he could get there, and now he's in jail.
Okay,
And
so who is this Victor Orban character that you mentioned?
well, okay, so the question about why this is kind of unusual is that Tucker Carlson's now reporting on this story about Coach Red Pill being arrested. And it's kind of weird because he's been arrested like for months. This happened a long time ago. Okay, this happened months ago. So I'm like, well, why is Tucker talking about this now? What's going on here? This kind of feels weird and suspicious to me. Is this part of a larger agenda? And as I was thinking about that, I saw another story that was reported the same day, which is that lo and behold, the Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing think tank, which has been used to be very hawkish, used to be very anti-Russia, suddenly, for some reason, started to become very isolationist. As the isolationist populism became very popular on the right, and they started to really start to advocate for America to stop funding Ukraine and to just basically let Ukraine fall to Russia. And lo and behold, the Heritage Foundation is now having Viktor Orban, the president of Hungary, who is very pro-Putin, coming into some kind of conference to talk to a bunch of Republicans in our government to try to convince them that they should stop funding the war in Ukraine.
Interesting. So Victor Orban, he's right wing or left wing?
Well, I mean, he's everyone's calling him a fascist, whatever. I don't know if that's true. He's definitely on the right, but he's definitely far more on the Putin side of things than the European side of things in Hungary.
Right. So regardless of the politics, he's an ally of Putin
Yes,
and would like Russia to win the war against Ukraine.
yes, yeah.
Why? So why is the Heritage Foundation? Do you know why they've kind of changed their tune on isolationism or on hawkishness? Why they've adopted this isolationist policy?
Well, no one knows for sure. I don't think like I don't have any evidence. I don't think they're being like paid off or something like that. But it's interesting because the National Review, which is a right wing libertarian publication, had a whole article kind of talking about this. I think it's just because it seems like to me, if you look at the timeline, they're just following the trend of the Republican Party, essentially. is that, when the Republican Party is very hawkish, they're very hawkish. And then as soon as like the kind of Trump isolationism, populism kind of becomes popular, they change their stripes to kind of go along with that narrative.
So you're thinking it's a bottom-up process. It's generally these NGOs are just adopting whatever their donors want. Is that what you're?
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me.
Okay. Okay.
So that's like the broad strokes, but I'm going to kind of dig in this story a little bit because this is a very fascinating story to me. So the background to Coach Red Pill is very interesting because I don't know what you think about when you think about Coach Red Pill, but when I hear about him, the first thing comes to my mind is about how if you recall this, he tried to like trick Sargon into becoming his friend so that he could dig up dirt on him. Do you remember this? It was like this like weird thing where he was trying to ingratiate himself with Carl, and Carl knew that Coach Red Pill was like talking all the smack behind his back and trying to like destroy Carl and trying to destroy him and do all this stuff. And Carl made a video about this at the time. This was like in like 2017 or something. And Carl called them out and he showed the DMs about how Coach Red Pill was trying to smooth talk him and all this stuff, and it was all just like lies and snaky and like really gross and disgusting behavior.
I remember that, yeah.
And it's funny because Coach Red Pill is a person who makes constantly bad predictions. He made this very funny prediction where he said Lacey Green was a spy sent by MTV.
Do you remember this? About that? Yes.
Yes, to subvert the skeptic community from within by going into the skeptic community, I guess via dating Chris Ray Gun, and like to poach all the talent from the skeptic community and then make them end up working for MTV. And then MTV would like make all the skeptics woke or something.
We laughed very hard about this because this is such just an insane conspiracy theory. And as if MTV has can't win talent over to their network.
Well, it's like this video is insane because I remember he was saying that he was predicting that Carl Sargon was going to 100% get bought off by MTV and become some kind of MTV shill. And then he even made the greater claim that Roaming Millennial was going to be the face of MTV.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like he's like this wacky stuff. Okay. So I bring this up because I want you to like understand this is Coach Red Pill's predictive powers. Okay. So he predicts all this is going to happen. Obviously, nothing remotely like this happened at all, right? And now that we have hindsight, nothing like that happened. But this kind of plays into the theme of his predictive powers because Coach Red Pill slowly becomes the America bad person. Okay. He thinks America is the evil bad empire. He thinks the West is the evil bad empire. And he started predicting that America would fall and the West would fall. Right.
Wow.
And so he made a video telling all of his viewers, another one of his predictions, that they should leave America and that they should leave Western countries. Okay. And so where did Coach Red Pill go? Where did he flee? He was so worried about America falling. Where did he run to?
Ukraine?
The one country that gets invaded. This is how bad his powers of prediction are.
This is not a smart move.
No. So Coach Red Pill, this local, he runs away to Ukraine. And then what does he do in Ukraine? Right? What does he do in Ukraine? Well, first of all, he goes there. And part of the reason he goes there is that he thinks he can like the people there are more corrupt, or like that his American money would be more like get him further there. And it's actually really gross. I found he sent, and it's very ironic, he actually sent Carl a video where all the video is literally the entire video. Because this is all because he tried to snake Carl and Carl called him out on this. Okay. Because Carl called him out as being a dishonest snake, Coach Red Pill made a video where he had someone that was supposed to be his girlfriend at the time wearing lingerie and being like, oh, spin around and look sexy for the camera. And he filmed her. And then at the end, he puts a message like, haha, Carl, like, I have a hot girl who's better than your wife and your children. Like, get screwed.
What a prick.
Yeah.
Why would you do such a thing?
Because he's a piece of shit. That's why. And the irony, the great irony is that at the end of it, he says, like, the best revenge is living well.
Yeah, I have the still. You want me to bring it up here?
If you want, yes. If you want, you can break it up.
He's got the Carl crying soy jack.
Yes. he even has this emoji in his video. So Coach Red Pill sends this to Carl, and now who has a family and is living comfortably and nicely, and who is rotting in a Ukrainian prison?
Irony is like caviar for the mind, Stitch. Okay, like the irony here is chef's kiss, so
Right.
delicious.
Right.
Yeah, this is like $1,000 an ounce caviar right here.
Right. So, okay. So this brings us to Ukraine gets invaded. Now, because he has the America bad brain rot, Coach Red Pill obviously goes down the path that America is bad and therefore Russia is good, and Russia, taking over Ukraine is actually like a good thing. And he starts making a bunch of content. He starts to get a lot of views because his channel was actually dying. And then it seemed like as soon as he jumped on the America bad, Russia good train, he
Right.
gets a bunch of views because that's like a popular thing that
He's
people...
like copying Jimmy Dore. He's like, look, I'm the Jimmy Dore of Ukraine.
Right. He was like the Jackson Hinkle, before Jackson Hinkle sort of situation.
Right. Oh
Right.
man, Jackson better watch out.
Right. And so he's like doing a bunch of that content. And, as I said, this is, whether you agree with it or not, that is illegal in Ukraine to do that kind of content. So they obviously, they put him under house arrest. He tries to flee, he gets arrested. So, like, talking about the morality of the question, like, do I think that Coach Red Pill should be arrested for the speech? My answer is personally no. I don't think you should be arrested for, speaking out against the Ukrainian government. However, okay, I feel like this situation is exactly the same in my mind as someone trying to resist arrest. And what I mean by that is that when we watch these videos of people resisting arrest, fighting the police, running away from the police, I don't think that someone resisting arrest, I don't think that they should be beaten up, right? I don't think they deserve to be beaten up or worse, right? Just because they're resisting arrest. However, I'm not going to feel bad for them if they do. All right.
Right.
I'm not going to feel any badness. I'm not going to feel bad at all for you, because my take on it is, if you fuck around, you find out. All right. And when people resist arrest, that's very high levels of effing around. And when Coach Red Pill decides to be a foreigner in another country and criticize that country and mock that country and promote the idea that the people dying in Ukraine, like, to like kind of basically spit on them dying in that country as they defend that country from being invaded. Okay. That is probably the highest level of effing around and finding out that I can conceive of.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty
Right.
bad.
That is some ultra top tier F around find out scenario. So that's my take, is like, yeah, I don't agree with the law, but I'm not going to shed a single tear for Coach Red Pill because A, he's a bad person, number one. But then number two, this is like peak F around find out, and he found out.
Okay, so just to play devil's advocate here, see, a lot of people will say that Coach Red Pill is doing a valuable service here. He's speaking truth to power. Ukraine is supposed to be a democracy. They're supposed to be a free society. And he's providing a valuable service and commentary on that situation in Ukraine.
Okay. I mean, listen, I said I don't agree with the law. I think he should be able to say what he wants, even in
Right.
Ukraine. I'm just saying, like, no one should be surprised by it. Like, everyone said, Coach, you're an idiot. Like, if you want to sit there and crap all over Ukraine and like make a career attacking a country that's being invaded, you should move. You should leave the country. Okay.
Right.
Obviously, like, if America was being invaded by Mexico, okay,
Mm-hmm.
could you imagine if we were being invaded by Mexico? We're in like this long, bloody conflict with Mexico, and there's some like, piece of crap. Let's say
A Frenchman.
Let's say Philosophy Tube. Okay, flies from England.
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
Lands in Texas.
Right.
And spends all day crap talking America and saying how based it would be if Mexico takes over America. Right. People aren't going to react kindly to that. And they're like, probably shouldn't do that. Right? People are going to be pretty bad about that. Right. And it's like, why are you doing this? Like, if you want to do this, just leave, get out of the country. Like, why are you staying in Ukraine? It's insane. It's wild to me. And it's not even like he had some like deep roots there, because at the time, supposedly at the time that when Russia invaded Ukraine, he was like living in a hotel or something. It wasn't like
Right.
he was, some oh, I have this property and I can't get rid of it. So he was like in a hotel, which he got kicked out of. The hotel, private person kicked him out of the hotel first because they said, "What are you doing? You can't be siding with Russia as we're getting invaded."
So I might say I've noticed a lot of these America bad type people. One of the arguments that they make is America is bad because we're going out there in the world and we're foisting our values onto people by force. Those values of things like freedom of speech,
Right.
freedom of the press,
Right.
right? So I would say, look, isn't this kind of the situation going on here? All you've got this guy going over there and saying, look, Ukraine should have the same exact values as us as far as freedom of speech goes and freedom of the press.
Oh,
And
interesting.
isn't it horrible that they're arresting me for these things that we value in the West?
So you're saying he's a big hypocrite?
Well, how is it not? How
I
is it
mean, you're
not?
right. That's a great point. Yeah, that's
So
a great point.
they don't have that value. They have the value, well, our boys are being killed by Russian soldiers. You shut the fuck up. That's their
Right.
value. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So who is it for us to impose our values on these people when they're being killed?
Right. Especially if you're going to adopt the America bad lens.
Yeah.
Right.
So it seems a little contradictory to me.
Right.
But
Well,
so
right.
so I don't. Why are we looking at Tucker Carlson? What is
Okay. So yeah,
Tucker
the
Carlson?
last thing I want to talk about was, as I talked about in the beginning, was this is weird because Tucker Carlson's like dredging up this story.
Right.
I'm like, what is the point of, like, this is an old story. Coach Red Pill's been in prison for months now. It's not like it just happened. Why is Tucker Carlson dredging up this story now? And I think it's because they're trying, it's like, this is like part of a broader scheme, I guess, by Tucker and other, pundits and people of that nature on the right, who are trying to create justifications to get the Republicans to not want to fund the war anymore, not want to fund Ukraine anymore. And the thing that's really weird about this, and I actually feel kind of bad for Coach Red Pill's father, because Tucker puts up this interview, and it's an interview that's with Coach Red Pill's father. And Coach Red Pill's father talks for like 95% of the interview. Like Tucker barely says anything.
Okay. It's a 19-minute interview, so he
right.
basically talks for the majority of that 19 minutes.
The only thing is, like, the beginning of it is Tucker Carlson basically, just says things that are not true about how Coach Red Pill has said all these things about the situation that turned out to be accurate, which are not. Coach Red Pill's not accurate about like anything, but okay. So, but I feel bad for Coach Red Pill's father because he spends the whole interview talking about how America is evil and how Ukraine is evil. And I'm sitting there watching this like, what are you doing? Do you want, like, if your son is in prison in a foreign country, your goal should be to get the American government to put pressure on Ukraine to release your son, right? Isn't that the goal for usually these sorts of interviews? To put a spotlight on these things?
You want a federal attorney out there advocating to get your American citizen back.
Exactly, right? And so the way to do that is not to have the father come out and talk about how much America sucks and how evil America is, and not to talk about how evil Ukraine is, because all that's going to do is send a signal to the Biden administration, who's going to say, well, why would we expend an ounce of care or political capital to try to free this guy who hates us, and his father hates us, and they say that we're evil 24/7. So when he gets out of prison, all he can do is talk about how much we suck. Why would you ever, like, it's just insane to me. Like, this is the worst strategy of all time. And so I do feel bad for his father, because even though I think that's his father's real views, because he said his father has been in other interviews and he said these same things. So I think that's true. But I feel like, to me, it feels like Tucker Carlson is just using his father.
Right.
Because Tucker's smart enough to understand like how you play this game. They'd be like, okay, if you want your son back, like, you have to like be gracious with America, and you have to plead with America and say, listen, free speech, my son believes in free speech, America, free speech, we have to, fight to protect his rights, blah, 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 which isn't what happens. Tucker's smart enough to know that's the move, that's the maneuver. But instead, he has his father go off on this super long tirade about how America is evil, the West is evil, and Ukraine's evil, which only really serves the purpose, in my opinion, of promoting this idea that the Republicans should stop funding the war in Ukraine. So to me, it feels like Tucker is using Coach Red Pill's father as a useful idiot for his own political goals.
Right. Chiefly to end the funding for Ukraine.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you could see, Tucker actually got noted in his tweet here.
I noticed that. What's that about?
He got noted in the tweet because he said that he was being tortured and made some other claims about the thing. And they're saying there's no evidence that he was being tortured or anything like that, that we know of. And it's even weirder because then like Elon Musk got involved with this and he was like, oh my God, this is a travesty. Like, why is Joe Biden not like fighting for this Americans like right for freedom? And then Elon Musk even went further saying that, like the deep state, he made some allusion to like the note here was a honeypot for like government agents, like messing around on Twitter. It was like this weird, wacky thing that he was like alluding to.
Wow. So this is a crazy story. Thanks for digging it up. You got any final thoughts before we sign off?
Final thoughts are kids, don't F around if you don't want to find out.
Yeah, exactly. Stay safe out there. Hi, you just listened to a Sitch and Adam recorded video. That's right, we're doing Monday through Friday deep dive recorded videos now. And of course, we're still doing our live streams. Our live streams are on Sunday and Tuesday starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And you can super chat us, or you can join the channel. Subscribe to this channel right here to watch the live show or watch more of our awesome deep dive videos.